He walks out of McNeil Island, he will never be free.
And walk out Kevin Coe did just hours ago. The infamous South Hill Rapist now free after decades behind bars.
They're frustrated, and rightfully so.
The women he terrorized making their voices heard before his release. Why prosecutors say Coe was no longer a threat and where he is headed next. A special edition of KREM 2 News First at 4 starts right now.
He will never be free. Satan has been a part of his life from the time he was a young adult and started doing these crimes.
One of Washington State's most notorious criminals walking free. Kevin Coe, the South Hill Rapist, believed to have carried out dozens of sexual assaults on Spokane South Hill back in the 70s and 80s. Coe was eventually sentenced for one rape conviction and spent nearly 2 decades in civil commitment as a sexually violent predator in Pierce County. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of KREM 2 News First at 4. I'm Mark Hanrahan. A Spokane County judge signed off on his release this morning after the state's Attorney General's office said it could not meet the burden of proof to hold him any longer. KREM 2's Shannon Mowdy starts off our team coverage tonight with what happened in the courtroom.
Inside this courtroom, survivors got the chance to say their piece, knowing it held no sway over what happened here.
There is no dispute over the outcome of what's going to be occurring today. The court has no discretion.
Judge Julie McKay made clear Wednesday morning she had no choice but to release Kevin Coe under state law. But she did have a choice whether to hear what survivors of his crimes had to say.
And he had told me during that night that he was going to kill me before he let me go. I had a tendency to believe him based on how badly he beat me.
Shelley Monahan Kane was the only one who let her statement be recorded. She says Coe raped her in September 1979, and she hasn't been silent since.
If we were able to talk to Fred Coe in person, I would beg him to get help. I would beg for him to admit what he did, to ask forgiveness.
Coe waived his right to be present for the hearing and did not hear their words. But some survivors still addressed him directly, calling him the worst of the worst. While some forgave him, one woman said he's a psychopath, something that won't go away with age.
Is Mr. Coe mentally ill, and is he dangerous?
Coe's release after 4 decades is based on a 2024 psychological evaluation that found the 78-year-old no longer meets the criteria to hold him as a sexually violent predator due to failing health.
And we all know that even when he walks out of McNeil Island, he will never be free unless his last breath is what he does by asking God forgiveness.
With a signature from the judge, Frederick Kevin Coe walks free.
While your statements may not have an impact on the proceeding, I can guarantee you, personally, I will leave here with a hole in my stomach and a hurt heart, because the words do mean, and they do have impact, at least on me personally.
We've learned Coe will be taken to an adult group home on the west side of the state, but he can walk out whenever he chooses to. Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
And reaction is pouring in after the judge's ruling this morning. KREM 2's chief journalist Amanda Rowley shares what Spokane County's prosecutor said after the hearing.
Right after the hearing ended, Spokane County Prosecutor Preston McCollum spoke privately with the survivors. He told me right now he's feeling frustrated and disappointed that the current law is allowing for Kevin Coe's release.
The legacy that Coe has left on this community is a dark one. The frustration that I have when somebody who's such a prolific offender is released is that it leaves everybody wondering why. It leaves them wondering, why do we go through this process? Why do we spend hundreds of thousands and tens of millions of dollars prosecuting somebody, incarcerating them, and then only to have them released at the end?
Now, to be clear, the Spokane County Prosecutor's Office does not have jurisdiction over sexually violent predator cases like this one. The state handles those. Now, when I asked the prosecutor what we could expect to see formulate from his frustration, he said advocacy.
Advocacy in changing statutes for the better. Advocacy moving forward when we're discussing legislation that impacts crime victims, that impacts offender sentences. And so that is an area that I believe very strongly about.
The Spokane Superior Court is also weighing in on the ruling. In a press release, the court says it respects how the cases involving Kevin Coe profoundly affect the Spokane community, especially the victims and their families. Adding there was no dispute between the parties for the court to resolve, and that lawyers have an ethical obligation to not pursue cases when they cannot legally prove their case. The county prosecutor hopes this case shows the public how critical the need is for new legislation. Reporting from the Spokane County Courthouse, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
In our effort to bring you more to every story, let's talk about how Coe's release is going to work. Coe underwent a psych exam as the start of the process to make sure he no longer poses a threat to the community. A judge then reviewed that exam and ordered his release today. Prosecutors then handed over documents to the Special Commitment Center, which has treated Coe for the last 2 decades. We learned just hours ago Coe will be moved to an adult group home in Federal Way over on the west side. He must still register as a sex offender. Today, Eastern Washington Congressman Michael Baumgartner released a statement following today's decision. He said, quote, Kevin Coe should have been given life in prison or the death penalty for his heinous crimes on Spokane South Hill. It is deeply disturbing for everyone in Spokane that he will be out on the street, unquote.